I don't know about you all, but personally, I enjoyed the conversation between Donald Trump and Elon Musk last night because I believe that this is what we deserve from our presidential nominees or any other politician for that matter. We deserve more transparency. If you want people to come out and vote for you, at the very least, you need to be able to sit down and have real conversations off script, no teleprompter, not reading any notes. You need to be able to sit down and have a conversation so people can judge for themselves what they think about you and what they really and how they actually feel about you when you're not sitting down reading from a script. As you see, this is why they hate Donald Trump so much, because he is willing to be more transparent. You might not like what he says, you might not like him as a person, but you know what he's going to give you. You know what you're going to get. He's more transparent than these other politicians. He's willing to talk to anyone and everyone. He knows that basically everyone that sits down to interview him absolutely hates him, and they're only trying to make him look bad. Yet he sits down and he has these conversations every single time anyway. And this is why they want him out of there. Even the Republicans, they don't like Donald Trump either. Why? Because he sets a new standard that they know they cannot live up to. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Donald Trump is the greatest guy to ever live. But when I say that he sets a new set of standards, what I mean is other politicians, they know that at the very least, people who are supporting Trump, they're going to expect something like this moving forward. They're going to expect their politicians to be willing to have the conversations that Donald Trump is willing to. They know that now people are going to expect their politicians to go out here and do these rallies and talk and talk and talk and show who they truly are, regardless if you like who they truly are or not. So in that way, Donald Trump sets a new standard that they know they can't live up to, and that's one of the reasons why they hate him. All of these politicians hate him. Washington, D.C. hates him because in many ways he's an outsider. And in many ways he's done things differently than these other politicians, including this conversation that he had with Elon Musk last night. This is something that you won't see from Kamala Harris. This is something that we didn't see from Joe Biden. This is something that we haven't really seen from other presidents. Sitting down, just having phone conversations on the internet, doing live streams with random live streamers on YouTube. This is something that these politicians have never done because most of them aren't willing to go off script in the way that Donald Trump is willing to go off script.
Because people see, fortunately, I have a platform like you, or, in all fairness, like a conversation like this, where I can talk about it and people understand. I mean, you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens
Yeah.
is they went after their political opponent, me.
During this discussion that we're having, there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship, even on Americans from other countries. And what do you think about that?
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know. We, through a different forum, NATO, we protect them. And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible. The same thing with our farmers. Our farmers find it very difficult to do business. We have a deficit with them of $250 billion. which people don't know. It sounds so nice, the European Union, but let me tell you, they're not as tough as China, but they're bad. And I let them know it. And that's probably why they notified you. No, they don't treat our country well. We defend them, you know, with Ukraine. So we're in for 250 billion, and they're in for about 71 billion, and they have the same size. It's if you add up the European nations that in terms of an economy, it's about the same size. When you say as us, and they're in,
Yeah,
and they're in much greater risk. They're right there. We have an ocean separating us from, in this case, the enemy would be Russia. Used to be for the
yeah,
Soviet Union, but let's assume they're close enough. And what happens is they're in for 70 something million. I think even less than that, billion, and we're in for about 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than that. And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more, it's much more important for them because of the fact that, they're right near there. I mean, they're all sort of in that location. We're not.
Now, as I've already stated, I really enjoyed listening to this conversation. But what I enjoyed even more was the reaction from the Kamala Harris campaign. They were having a complete meltdown, showing their true colors, showing that they don't believe in the freedom of speech at all. They were raging out as if the world was crumbling. It was really and truly a sight. It was really and truly a sight to see. But I want you to understand, folks, the Kamala Harris campaign, they weren't freaking out necessarily about what Donald Trump was saying. No, they weren't angry and freaking out about what he was saying. They were freaking out and they were angry that he had the right to say anything at all. So they may paint things out in a certain way, and you may believe, oh, they're outraged because Donald Trump said this or Donald Trump said that. No, there's nothing in particular that he said that set them off. They're angry that he had the opportunity to speak at all. They're angry that he had the guts to even have this conversation because they're not willing to have the same conversations. So they're going to demonize Donald Trump and they're going to act like it's the end of the world every time he sits down and does an interview because they want their brain dead followers to start thinking that it's bad to do interviews because Kamala Harris isn't doing interviews. All right? So it's not necessarily anything Donald Trump said. It's not anything that Elon Musk said. It's just the fact that they're here having a conversation. Just the fact that they're having a conversation at all. And people are listening. That's what they're freaking out about. Now, of course, they'll brainwash their followers into going right along with the madness. But there are people in the middle who are watching this, and I'm hoping that some of them are coming to the realization of what we're dealing with. Because sure, you could freak out and make a big deal about certain things, but you can't freak out and make a big deal about the conversation that happened between Elon and Donald Trump. There's no world-ending stuff going on, nothing bad, just a conversation between two people. So I believe if you're a reasonable, rational person, you will see the reaction to this conversation as extreme. And hopefully that leads you down a path of understanding what you're dealing with when it comes to people like Kamala Harris. But for now, let me know your thoughts down below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell. And if you find yourself getting too worked up by all of this, remember, it's just political cinema.